Hi, I'm Dave Edmondson, and this is my tool trailer. Let's go for a little tour. So, basically, I had the handle put in the centre of the door, so obviously when I'm on site I can just stand in the middle and then let the rollers ease it down. It's pretty much based off the same design as Ron Paulk, well, pretty much exactly the same design as Ron Paulk, except I made a few modifications to the front section here, where I keep my bench that I use pretty much every day, the total station, and then in here I have my door bench, which is basically out every single day on site. Okay, so first drawer through here, I guess we'll start with the first drawer, eh?
Yep.
Might as well start with the first drawer. First drawer through here I have spreaders and spacers for my door frames, knockdown door frames. I keep a couple of the third hands in there from Fastcap, and a little door dolly. So basically simplified, simple, straightforward door dolly to wheel the big heavy 1200 wide doors, a couple of my door spreaders, and my third hands in there. What else have I got in here? Oh, just some little templates for cutting different parts of trim on the miter saw. Okay. Then we've got, we'll go the right hand side first. So as we go in, I've got all my fixings and lock accessories, parts of cylinders, spindles for locks, things that I sort of come across every day on the job where parts might be missing, or striker plates for certain frames, and then yeah, just miscellaneous accessories, but everything's there ready to go, so I don't have to chase through a box trying to find where everything is. So the first cubby that's built is pretty much designed around my main bulky items, Festool KS 120. Then behind that I've got drop sheets, towels, things like that when I'm working on finished floors or inside for private jobs rather than for builders, just to protect floors, things like that. Then I've got this little toy, which is the cordless 18-volt AEG air compressor, which actually runs off of two batteries. Well, you can run it off one battery, but it's got the two. But I bought this little adapter which basically runs off of my Makita batteries, because most of my cordless stuff is Makita. But at the moment in Australia I couldn't find another cordless air compressor, so I had to make some alterations, but this thing seems to be doing pretty good. That's more for, again, finished houses. If I'm working on around finished walls, I can basically have this set up and not have to run the hose. Then I've got the big table saw, that fits in there, that's self-explanatory really. Then I've got my little Occidental leather carpenter's bag, which has all my accessories for when I'm doing fit outs. So if I'm doing doors, all my parts for locks, I've got the latchmate chisel, sanders and accessories. Then I've also got my shelving and trim parts when I go in to do the fit offs there. Then following along, there's a space up here which is for a future bench, which I'm going to build another compact bench which will fit up here, and then I'm actually going to build another second cubby up here to put some other accessories. I think I've been using this for about 4 weeks now, and I just got everything in to see how it would go, and now I've been using it for that period of time. I'm starting to work out slight alterations with stuff, but yeah, this will be an added on extension later on. Okay, and then into this smaller cubby here, I keep my cordless Makita. That's just used for if I need to come into a quick job, something like that, a little bit of trim just to go on. I've got easy access to that. I don't have to set up the big saw. Laser levels, I've got 2 laser levels there, the DeWalt and, actually I can't even remember what brand this one is. It was bought here in WA. Also got my drill sharpener, drill doctor, and also my new Templaco lock boring kit, which I use for the internal cylinder handles, and then the actuated fastener, powder actuated explosive gun there. Through the drawers, so these were originally actually designed, I was going to put tools in these and then load them up on the trolley and take them to site, but it's actually impractical doing that, so I've ended up using them for storage. So through this drawer here, I've got wood fillers, tools, things like that, and just some tie down straps, some rags, just general kind of miscellaneous stuff too. But what's basically, I've done exactly the same design as Ron Paulk, where he put a little piece of trim and a ripped down strip of timber down the bottom, and as you can see when I pull the drawer out, there's a little notch section here, which as you push the drawer in, it locks in. During transport, it won't come out. Second drawer, I've got clamps in here, just some small sledgehammers, and a little mixer if ever I need to mix up a bit of gravel or mud. Or this drawer's basically got a small bench grinder and my chisel sharpener from Workshop, and some spare dividers. And then at the bottom I've got spare paintbrushes, glue bots from Fastcap, the Babe bots, they're awesome. I use them every single day. Shims, paint for the bottom of the doors, chalk for the chalk lines, PVA glue. Then on this side I've got the smaller section, which has all my liquid nails, construction adhesives, gap fillers, nozzles, everything glue tube related. Sandpaper drawer, all the different various types of sandpaper for belt sanders, orbital sanders, and the little finger sander that I use, which I'll explain as well why I use that one. I've also got in here my Festool attachments for everything, because I've recently upgraded a lot of my tools to Festool with the dust extraction and the power tools. So I've got all their accessories, bags for the planers, and also my mortar slock jig, which I use to house out for the body of the mortar slocks. It just makes it a lot easier than trying to drill it out with a spade bit. At the bottom there I just keep the job site thicknesser, which doesn't get used that often, but when it does get used it's the only tool for the job. So I keep that one down on the ground. There's a bit of weight to it, so I don't want to be carrying that in and out every single day if I can help it. Before we go around the back section here, I'll go through this section, which is basically my vacuum cabinet. I got the 48 litre Festool with the Cyclone, which I use when I'm planing doors. So basically all the planer dust goes into this instead of filling up the bag. Even though I do have the Festool long life bag in there, it's just a hell of a lot easier and more efficient to fill this up and tip it out. Then I've got the smaller one here, which is the CT17. That one, I use that for the smaller tools, so things that are fine dust like sanding, or if I'm using it for the track saw, the router, things like that, things that aren't going to cause a huge amount of dust. I use that one for that and set them up around the door bench. Hoses stay up there, that section in there. And then up the top I've got the accessories, so vacuum accessories for Festool Vac, spare bags, and I think that's what's that up there. Oh, the lid for the Cyclone. Then on this side here I've got my ladder set up. So actually the holder here for the ladder is actually from a guy who's got a YouTube channel called Shoeshine Johnny. He had a walkthrough of his trailer, and while I was designing this and thinking of how I was going to set things up, I saw his little clip of how he made a little ladder storage, and he had the 2 ladders hooked on, because the whole design around the trailer was everything had to be passive. I didn't want things tied down so that I have to come in and untie a ladder or untie boxes or take tools out of boxes. So everything was hook it on, hook it off, or clip it on, clip it off. None of this tie down stuff. So I made pretty much I believe it's exactly the same as his setup, but basically, yeah, there's a little hook on there. The main ladder sits on the flat section, and then this hook's on here. So everything is sturdy, but I don't have to tie it down. Then I just put some basic hooks, metal hooks up on the panels there, and hooked up my leads. So there's that section. And then as we come back around, I've got the air hose, which is 50 meters of air hose on here. So there's a shitload of air hose, which is connected up through the side here down into the air compressor. And then I've cut a little hole through the section of the floor here, where I run the air hose through, and also the pressure valve, the release valve for the air. Whenever I'm using that, I just drop that in there and let the air out. Through this section here, I've got, keeping with that same kind of passive restraints, or locking, I suppose it'd be called. Basically, I've got my trolley here, which I keep the rubbish bin on there. And to stop that moving around while transport, I just have a little piece of timber that's cut in between the rail, which supports all my broom cabinet, or section of brooms, and that just slots in there real easy, just to keep everything in during transport. That comes out. And then I'll move over here, but basically through this little corner section, because it's a little bit of a dead area, I kept with the same theory with Ron, where he put a little rail across and he had his brooms and accessory stuff through there. So I've got my broom, dustpan, just a stick to get dirt and mud and gunk out of the cavity slide door units when I go to put them off on fit off, scrapers, and the vacuum attachment for the Festool vac. So that's that corner. And then at the top section of the deep storage, I've got extra lock accessories, latches, weather seals. Then I've got extra supplies, screws, fasteners, and then at the bottom I've got all my glues, extra storage of glues, the Type Bond glue, construction adhesive, and the gap filler. And then at the bottom I've got my saw stools for framing, and then an extra aluminium trestle there if needed. And on this side here, I've kept with exactly the same setup as Ron, with the cubby layout. So basically routed in 8mm grooves into the bases and the tops, and put little dividing panels in to separate my my tools. At the top here, I've basically got the heavy items, which is I've got the big framing gun there, and the little actually I've forgotten what that bloody thing's called now, palm nailer. The little palm nailer in there. I've got a few extra Makita stuff. I'll hide the 2 Ryobi tools, because I know you tradies out there would kick my ass if you knew I had Ryobi stuff, but they do have one tool which is bloody handy, and I'll explain that in a bit. I've got the sanders in there, so my orbital sander and the cordless Ryobi belt sander. Reciprocating saw up there. I've got the 18-volt Makita vacuum for very small, quick interior stuff if I'm drilling a hole here and there. I've got the big jigsaw here, which I use for my skirtings and cutting profiles. I've got the Collins coping foot, which is that attachment I got from the US, which allows me to cope all my skirting profiles from the underside. Gas gun up there, framing gas gun, again, quick and easy. Blower, 18 volt Makita blower. I use, most of my cordless stuff is Makita because of their range and because of the fact that you can swap batteries from tool to tool even when they upgrade to newer, they have the same batteries. I found with DeWalt and a lot of the other companies, they changed their style of battery, so I've kept with those. Makita belt sander up there, the router, the big with the router plate, which is designed to fit inside the total station. There's a section cut out in there for the plunge router with the router plate, so if I ever need to make a moulding while I'm on site or create some trim, I can do that. Then down onto the next shelf, I've got my door tools. So this is the new stuff which I've only purchased in the last 3 months. First one is the the HL850 Festool planer. This thing is a beast. I use this on doors. Basically, I use this for the edges of the doors. I don't use this for the top of the doors because it's too bloody heavy. But I use this with the guide fence, and then I have a little block in here which is set to 2.5 degrees, which I use to set, if that ever changes, which it rarely does. But I use that, set the planer at 2.5 degrees so I can back bevel the door hinge side and lock side of the door. Then I've got my Festool track saw in there. The new drill, actually, this is the big drill I use, the power drill for the Templaco door bore. Cordless drill just doesn't have the power behind it. Cordless Makita planer in there. That one's actually just for the doors. Sometimes I'll do like a fiberglass external door and I don't want to shatter the blades in the good planer, so I have something that's easily replaceable for that. Makita track saw in there, and then the cordless 36 volt Makita saw there. Couple of guns, just my standard 15 gauge nailer, 16 gauge nailer and the stapler. And then in here I've got my hardened steel bradder, which I use to fire into masonry, plaster walls, things like that when I'm fixing shelving. It's a brilliant, brilliant tool, along with construction adhesive. Down the bottom I've got my 23 gauge pin nailer, my 18 gauge pin nailer, another router, which I have set up for routering in the bottoms of doors for guide rails, things like that. That's real handy. A die grinder in there, 18 volt die grinder, which I use for adjusting metal strike plates if doors aren't quite latching properly because they're metal framed. Multi-tool, another cordless saw in here. This one I use specifically for melamine shelving. There's a 60 tooth blade in there, and that's just solely for the melamine shelves with a little homemade liquid nailed dust attachment on there so that I can connect that up to the vacuum with the Bluetooth. In here I've got another router, cordless 18 volt router with a roundover bit. That one there's just solely set up for roundovers. Next to that, another router with another roundover bit but for 1/2 inch stock. Another cordless planer here, which is set up for melamine shelving, planing in the underside. And then probably the one tool that you kind of think, what the hell would you want with that? But once you use it, you'd never go back. It's basically used for my melamine shelving so that when I have to scribe it to the walls to fit the contour of the wall, there is no question that is the best tool to use. Cordless angle grinder, another cordless router there which is set up for latches and strike plates on door frames. I run that around the template. They've all got template guides on them. Jigsaw set up just for standard stuff. Then I've got the Festool orbital sander, the Rotex. Then the Festool EHL65, which is the planer I use for tops of doors, scribing in the tops of the doors to the door frames. That's the only thing I use it for, because it's so much easier to have it one-handed on the side. Then I've got the 1010 router there set up for hinges, and then of course the Festool PDC 18 hammer drill driver. Okay, and then through this section here, coming back through, I've got my air compressor, which is fixed in the trailer, which is connected up, and then there's a power point at the back here, which is also connected through to the front of the chargers there. Next to that, I just keep my Occidental leather tool vest. Best thing I bought in the last 2 years, I think, for my back. It just takes the weight off. I used to have the nail bag on before. Best thing ever. Okay, so then through the drawers, which I'll just point out, all these drawers are interchangeable. So I could take this one out and swap it with that one, or I could take these top two out and move it over to if I wanted to. But I think I've been using it for about 4 weeks now, and I think I've got it set up pretty well, I think. But anyway, the first drawer here is fit off tools. So this setup here is basically for the tools I use when I go in to fit off all the hardware on the house after the painters have glossed out. So things for door handles, Allen keys for toilet roll holders, towel rails, things like that. A dead blow hammer for my latches so that I don't dent the latch when tapping the latches into the cutouts on the doors. The second one down is all about blades. So this drawer's exactly what it says at the front, all about blades. I've got all my blades for my reciprocating saw, angle grinder blades, diamond blades, power saw blades, all my different types of blades and accessories for the coping saw, multi-tool, and then the planer blades in there. Next drawer down is my spanners and all my sockets. All this one is just put into little compartments, and everything just separated. Tools for the spanners for the tools, the grinders and the routers and things like that. Chuck keys for the drill. They're all in there. The bottom drawer on the left is for my edge banding. So I've got the fast cap. What the hell is it called actually? Speed tape. I don't even know what the bloody thing's called. Fast cap speed tape in there with the rollers, the cutters, and everything in there. I've also got the iron-on edging, which I don't use that often, but I've got that much of it that it saves me having to buy more. And then next to that on the right-hand side, I keep my framing nails and my powder-actuated fasteners and the powder-actuated shells as well. Then over to this side, I've got my marking and scribing drawer. So everything to do with marking and scribing. Scribes, compass scribes, different size packers for scribing around my doors, door frames, miter saw protractor, squares, profile gauges, chalk lines, AccuScribe Pro by FastCap, another great little tool. They come out with some awesome stuff, and different squares and things like that as well. That all stays in there. So next one down is all about routers, which is basically everything about my routers. All my accessories for the extra fences, all the stuff for the router table or the router plate, which fits on the Paulk total station. And then I've got all my various router bits, so all my raised panel bits, cope and stick, flush trim router bits, and all my hinge router bits and stuff in there too. So everything's easily accessible. Then it comes down to drill bits, hole saws and spade bits. So this bit's basically all about every drill bit that I've got. Hole saws, Fastener bits, SDS hammer drill bits, high-speed hammer drill bits, countersink bits, just some miscellaneous accessories that are easily seen, so that the longer drill bits in there's not really a spot for them, so I've just tucked them in the corner. Spade bits, different attachments and driver bits for things like that. That's all in there. And then pliers, screwdrivers, chisels, a few demo tools in there, just Allen keys, tin snips, hot rivet gun, small block plane which I use just for sort of rough stuff. The good block plane stays in my tool best. So okay, and then in the first bank of drawers as you come in the trailer, I don't even have this top drawer labelled because I organised everything so well here that when I got to the first drawer I didn't even really know what to put in it. So it's actually just a miscellaneous drawer at the moment. I will find something for it, but I've just got a couple of new tools that I purchased in the last couple of weeks, and one of them is the drywall anchor gun, which bloody handy tool. My new stud finder, and just a 250mm level with a little bit of tape and stuff which I use on the Templaco jig, and yeah, it's a bit of an empty drawer at the moment, but I'll fill that up in the future. The second drawer down is all my finish nails, so this is basically everything that I use on a daily basis. So I've got staples in there, my 16 gauge finish nails, 18 gauge nails. Now this section here just on this pallet is basically the nails I use on a daily basis every day, and then around it is stuff that I've either extra supplies or things that I use not so frequently. So yeah, I've got my hardened steel brads there, 30 mils, and then I've got my 45s and 18 mils, etc. in there, 50 mil C brads, and my 30 mil 18 gauge C1 brads, 23 gauge pins. Yeah, so that's all my fixings, finish nails. The next drawer down is just samples, so when I'm doing private jobs for clients and things like that, obviously if I'm doing skirting or baseboard install, I've got samples with me, panel mouldings and things like that. So in this drawer I just keep, which is clearly all over the place. Haven't tidied this one up yet. I've got different types of mouldings, so skirting profiles, prices on there that they are from the hardware store, brochures on locks, and different types of accessories. So I've got all the info with me. If a client drops something on me that's, you know, not always stock standard, I've always got some way of giving them the info right there at the time. Business cards from different companies that I've met over the last few years while being on the building sites, so I keep all their info in there as well. The idea behind that trim samples drawer as well is that when I'm at a client's place, for me to instead of taking all the samples into their house, I can actually bring them into the trailer, and it gives them a look at how I set myself up and how I'm operating. So it's sort of it's a way to draw them into my world, and they come in and, you know, they see the vacuums and they see the setup, and they instantly know that they're dealing with someone who cares about what he does. And then the very bottom drawer here is all my templates and jigs for my locks and latches. So I've got my hinge template there, which I use for routering out my 100mm butt hinges. It's adjustable too, so I can move it depending on door thicknesses, but I've got it set up. I've got a standard latch template there for the edge of the door when I router in my door latches. Different types of mortise locks, T-strike plates, a single hinge template for the door frames, different types of deadbolt strike plates, and just random templates that I use. I know what they all are, so yeah. They're all set in there. Okay, another thing I've got up the very top is I've written some little labels here, but I've basically got a Festool track up the very top, which is for the 2.4 meter track. Longer track, I've got some full door height hinge templates. I don't use them very much now, but they're up there just in case. I've also got a straight edge up there at 2.4 meters, and I've also got my tripod for my laser level. So they just store up the top real easy. Something I don't use daily, but I grab them out if I need them. There's also the air hose up there as well, which I pull down this side if I need to blow out some tools, or if I need to just use a nail gun real quick for a small project. Okay, this section here I've got all my chargers. So the power's actually set up so that there's a male point on the outside of the trailer underneath on one of the bars. I plug the lead into that, and that wires everything up. Gives me power to the whole trailer. I don't have any lights set up in here because this Festool light here that's constantly charged, I just hook up on the rail to the door, and it gives me enough light here to see through. But I have all my chargers set up, everything plugged in, so that as soon as that point, as soon as the lead's plugged in down there, the whole trailer's got power. So this is on charge all day while I'm on site, and that also connects through to the air compressor. So that's all set up. I've got power. Then on this side here, I've just got my pens, pencils, marking stuff, crayons if I'm ever doing some framing. I don't do too much roof framing as such now, but they're there if I need to do a roof or if anything's comes up. Different types of pencils, marking pens, the big glue bot, which carries the wood glue. The what's the bloody brand of it called? I've forgotten now. Small baby bot there. My CA glues and my business cards are in there. People are always asking for those, so I have them there, easy accessible. Put my earplugs there. As you can see, they're not used. It's a bad habit, but. And then up here, I've just got the various tape measures. I use them for framing. Whenever I'm fitting out jobs, I always use the Fast Cap 332, this tape measure here. Brilliant, brilliant for internal work. If I'm doing framing or I'm having to do heavy timbers, then I go to the Fat Max or the Lufkin, and then I've just got the bendable tape there as well. Then I've got a couple of spray paints. Clear ones for if I'm doing stain grade doors and I need to seal the bottoms of the doors. I use my clear clear sealers for that. Spray can if I'm doing the odd door here and there, and I need to drop back to a job to hang a door. I use the spray paint rather than setting up the paintbrush. Accelerator spray, a couple of spray bottles for the gap filling and things like that. A bit of deodorant too if I'm going to a quote afterwards and I've been working all day, just to freshen you up. And then up the top here I've got gloves, shoe covers for if I'm in display. If I do a fair bit of display homes now as well, and when I'm doing the hardware fit offs, they've normally got carpets on and things like that. So if it's an inconvenience to have to take your boots on and off, multiple times, then I just put sock covers on or shoe covers and wear those in the house. I've also got some antibacterial stuff. This spray bottle here is 70% vodka and 30% water, and that's used as like an antibacterial spray for my tool vest, because in the summer when it's 40 degrees it gets bloody hot and you're sweating it. So at the end of the day, just to keep it clean and smell a bit fresher, I give it a spray, hang it up on here, and then when I'm ready to go, I take it off, hook it up, and the next day it's clean, smells better, and we're all good to go. And then I've obviously got spare vodka in case that runs out. I don't drink, so I'm not like an alco on site. And then paper towels and stuff up there. But I also use this as a first aid kit. So basically, if someone cuts their finger or stubs their toe or something like that, I've got gloves up here, vodka to ease the pain, methylated spirits in case they want to have a quick drink, and stuff like that. So yeah. Okay, and then this section down here is basically for all my spirit levels. I've also got the Makita track saw there, which I use for kind of melamine stuff that really ruins your saw blades. and demo bars. So in this section, as I pointed out, I've got all my different various spirit levels, 400mm, 600mm, 800mm, 1200mm, and my 2 meter. I was going to build like a little level storage for it. I did run out of plywood, but I'm going to probably do that in the future. But for the moment, it works pretty well in that drawer. I keep the Makita tracks in there, and I've got some demo bars at the back. This is on loan from Festool at the moment. I'm giving one of their saws a test run, so I'll give you an update on that. And then just to the side in here, I keep my Festool track for the tops and bottoms of doors in there. Just seems to fit in quite nicely against the wheel arch and where the box finished. So I keep that in there. And then last but not least is the clamp setup, which I've just done actually very similar, I believe actually the same as Ron's. I've just clamped it up onto the bar here, but the bar up the top here is actually designed, it's got a slight contour to it, so it actually helps push the roof space up a little bit, just to give that roof a little bit of flex so that water can run off. And I've just utilised that to put the clamps up there. So yeah, that's my mobile tool trailer setup.